Why am I so gullible? Maybe I need to look a little inward, because why do I trust so easily? In a period where our main character is questioning his own reality and his own sanity, I should have known better than to think that any one thing or one person could be trusted. But I did. I blindly trusted because I'm me. This keeps happening. Kubo keeps doing this to me, even when I should know better. It's not entirely my fault though, because I've gotta say, one of my takeaways so far from Bleach is that Kubo knows how to pull off a twist, especially a betrayal. Before we get into the betrayal itself though, let's talk about the setup for it and how it perfectly built toward the big switch. And it was a massive switch that I'm still recovering from, and that makes it so a lot of this Lost Agent arc looks very different now, but in a good way. I'm seeing the story as far as a lot of the mystery has been pulled away, you know? We are getting answers, and now I'm looking back going, oh. Okay, so where we last left off, Ichigo and Ginjo felt like they were taking on the whole world, or at least all of the people they considered to be friends, thanks to Tsukishima tampering with people's lives. It was a horrifying, horrible situation that pushed Ichigo to the brink and broke him down to the point where all he's thinking about is murder. His first time trying to straight up murder a human being, by the way, so things are in a very dark place in this fight, and it's a mess that's about to get messier. While Ichigo is trying to kill Tsukishima, Ginjo is busy fighting all of the other Fullbringers, including Shishigawara, who we learn has this like gambling luck power where he can control odds in a fight and is potentially extremely dangerous even against Ginjo. That was really interesting to have a guy that seemed like a joke lackey kind of character actually end up posing a real threat potentially. I liked that a lot, but I really somehow need Orihime to be the one to defeat him. Let's get her free from Tsukishima's control just so she can take out Sushigawara, as she likes to say. I would love to see that. And just when Ichigo demands Tsukishima stop hiding behind Ichigo's friends, our big bad tries to stab Ichigo. And remember, one stab seems to be all he needs to alter the past of someone and control them. That's a terrifying prospect, and one that very nearly becomes a reality. But Ginjo comes to save the day. He throws himself in the way, and in his attempt to save Ichigo, Ginjo gets stabbed in his place. He protected Ichigo from having his reality erased and altered. He not only saved his physical life, but the life that he's actually lived. It was selfless. It was heroic. It was a powerful moment, at least in the last few remaining moments of me rooting for Ginjo. I am somewhat retroactively ashamed to admit that when I first read these pages, I was very sad to see Ginjo get stabbed. Obviously, knowing what I know now makes those feelings a little silly, but I'm not quite ready to talk about that just yet. I can say that in that moment, before everything else, it hurt. And it wasn't that I thought Ginjo was dead or anything. No, it was just knowing that he was now most likely going to fall prey to Tsukishima's power like everyone else. Because to me, Ginjo had been a source of comfort and even hope during this whole arc. He was the one that was guiding Ichigo to all of these new methods and all of these answers, and he was our conductor on this Fullbring train, presenting us with all of this lore and giving Ichigo an opportunity to find his strength again. And in this whole latest part of the story, when so many of our main casts were having their lives hijacked and altered, when they were being compromised, Ginjo remained steadfast and consistent beside Ichigo. He was the one person besides Ichigo that hadn't had his past be twisted. He felt like literally the only person that Ichigo, and by extension a reader or a viewer like me, could trust. I think I said last video that he was Ichigo's anchor. Yeah. That did not age well at all. But there lies the genius of the twist. But again, I'm not quite there yet. bear with me. Ginjo being stabbed by Tsukishima's blade was like the worst case scenario almost. The last friend that was still thinking clearly, the last one that agreed with Ichigo, the last witness to the history that Ichigo knew, and the last vestige of proof that Ichigo was sane, was now going to become just as insane as everyone else. Ichigo would have to see him turn on him and gaslight him, just like what happened with every other person he was friends with. Terrifying. And then nothing seemed to happen. Ginjo didn't suddenly think of Tsukishima as a friend. He was still thinking normally, and I'm like, that's weird. And even Ginjo is saying things about activation times, or maybe Tsukishima intentionally didn't alter his memories. I was like, yeah, maybe. That makes sense. Maybe that's why Uryu seemed fine after he was attacked. Or maybe it's probably something like that. Scary, but at least for now, Ginjo's still on Ichigo's side, right? And speaking of Uryu, he showed up, and I could feel my own paranoia as well as Ichigo's ramp up to 11 in a brilliant sequence like straight out of John Carpenter's The Thing and other classic psychological thrillers where you no longer are certain if someone is a friend or a foe. And of course Uryu is obviously under some suspicion. He was the first person that seemed to be attacked by Tsukishima, so it makes complete sense to be nervous about him, and he's already under Tsukishima's spell. Hell, he's even got that anime visual where his glasses are hiding his eyes, which is usually a very threatening looking choice. Like, how do you trust someone that's looking like that, you know? And it doesn't help when he readies his weapon, pointing it in Ichigo's direction. And even as Uryu is saying he's on Ichigo's side, I was sitting there thinking, how the hell is Ichigo supposed to just believe that after everything that's happened, you know? His closest friends, and even a couple of literal family members, aren't on his side anymore, despite acting like they are. We know Uryu was attacked. We know he's probably been marked, and it seems like he's about to turn on Ichigo like everyone else, and then one of the craziest things in this story happened. Like, this is when I really felt like Tight Kubo just punched me in the gut again, and he got me good. Uryu shouts out that the guy who cut him is standing behind Ichigo. Naturally, my first instinct was that Tsukishima was there, but when I saw the next page and it was Ginjo standing directly behind Ichigo, guys, wow. Just chills seeing that face and suddenly realizing that as bad as things have gotten for our hero, things can still get worse, and they do. Ginjo immediately incapacitates the shocked Ichigo while Tsukishima brought down Uryu, and I'm sitting there shell-shocked while Ginjo is cackling like a lunatic all of a sudden. It's immediately made clear that Kugo Ginjo is an enemy, maybe even the big bad of the Lost Agent arc. It's not like the others. Ginjo didn't have his past be rewritten to unknowingly betray Ichigo or to be turned into an enemy like everyone else. No, this is apparently the second time that Ginjo has been cut by Tsukishima's Fullbring. Yes, the guy we've been with the whole arc is a byproduct of the first time Tsukishima cut him, where he made him forget about their real history and where he apparently made Ginjo a much more honorable and selfless person to hide who he really was and to help him get closer to Ichigo to carry out their plans. This sneering, cackling, violent manipulator that was plotting to steal Ichigo's Fullbring the whole time, the guy I'm seeing now is the real Ginjo. The man we've gotten to know throughout the arc. The guy that I really enjoyed. He was a fake in some ways. Not even realizing himself probably that he'd been altered. Just a clever disguise that completely masked his real personality and his real ambitions, even from himself for a time. But what sucks is that I really loved Ginjo as a supporting protagonist. I liked the brotherly bond he was forming with Ichigo. I liked how he seemed like this very straightforward brawler type of character that was to the point, and like I was saying, he's been our guide and Ichigo's guide through this arc, through all these explanations about Fullbrings and through the training and introducing us to his team, and he was just super cool, and he had this giant sword, and he was fun to have as like a guy fighting alongside Ichigo. Let's bring back that guy, right? Yeah, bring back helpful big bro Ginjo, please. Usually I'm not one that approves of brainwashing ever, but brainwash Ginjo back, please and thanks. I want my Ginjo back. I don't want the real Ginjo, I want the brainwashed Ginjo, the nice one who's just funny and badass and he drinks too much. Bring back that Ginjo. This was just a crazy revelation, like up there with the Aizen twist, I would say, in the Soul Society arc, which, thinking about it, I should have been more prepared for like another villain twist, but it was done in such a different way. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the ways I know a writer just pulled off a really successful betrayal scene is the acute feeling of panic I get in that small moment of time between when it's revealed and when the betrayal actually comes. Usually it's a very small window, like a second or so, and sometimes it happens all at once, but it's that sudden shock and helplessness that sweeps over the viewer when you know something terrible is about to happen and you just can't stop it, and you feel duped because you trusted this character. I trusted Ginjo. But I love how that flashback played out where we started seeing the same scene we saw before with Uryu chasing Tsukushima at the beginning of the arc, only to then give us the piece we were missing when Ginjo attacked Uryu, not Tsukushima, and that Ginjo came up with the idea to be cut and to lose his memory. And while Tsukushima seemed a little uncertain, he went through with it. Ginjo wanted to get close to Ichigo to manipulate him, so he changed his past with Tsukushima to make the deception believable, because as far as Ginjo would know at the time, when he's talking to Ichigo, what he's saying, as far as he knows, is sincere and honest. Though I loved Tsukushima saying that it was actually because Ginjo was a bad actor and would have given it away if he didn't do that. I really liked that a lot. And that the other members of Execution he didn't have to tamper with as much because they're also better actors than Ginjo. The whole villainous explanation did make me think of something though. Like, why didn't Ginjo just have Tsukushima cut Ichigo to begin with and force him to become their ally and activate his Fullbring and all of that? Like, they could have earned Ichigo's trust by force, potentially. Wouldn't that be a million times easier than this kind of, let's tweak Ginjo and just kind of play out this fake narrative to manipulate Ichigo? I don't know. That just seems easier to me. If I was evil and I was doing this, that's probably what I would do. But there is a line where Ginjo says there's nothing fun about a game you know you're gonna win. So I guess he just wanted to gamble and do things in an even more deceptive and risky way than they would have had to do otherwise. That's an explanation, I suppose, but man, Ginjo isn't meticulous at all. He left a lot to chance. Like, he didn't even know what he was working toward while he was brainwashed, I don't think. So he could have screwed up his own plans. It's crazy. But just look at these two beautiful bastards. What a dastardly duo of villains. The power dynamics between them haven't been made perfectly clear yet. With how big this betrayal was, I could see Ginjo actually being the real leader and the real big bad, while Tsukushima was the secondary antagonist, kind of masquerading as the main villain to kind of pull off a red herring for this mystery. But who knows? Maybe they're really on equal footing and like co-big bads for this arc. We'll see. But man, this whole thing is just wild, because when you think about it, everything that Ginjo has pretty much ever said about Tsukushima this whole arc is probably inaccurate or a product of his past being warped. And most of what we know about Tsukushima came straight from Ginjo's mouth when he was under his spell. We can't trust any of what we were told was the backstory. Did all of that business with Fullbringers transferring their power to a substitute Soul Reaper even happen? I guess it still could have, but the details probably aren't correct. Like, I'm sure Ginjo played much more of a role in killing that Soul Reaper. Yeah, it makes sense why Ginjo was so confused about Tsukushima's real power back then, because he no longer knew about it. Let the record show that I actually was suspicious of Ginjo at points, alright? Especially early on. If you rewatch watched my first few videos in the Lost Agent arc, I wasn't fully sure to buy into what Ginjo was saying until, later when he personally trained Ichigo, but it doesn't really matter because I still got fooled in the end. So why did this twist get me so good, besides that I might just fall for things like this easily apparently, and I am just getting completely outsmarted by Kubo at every turn. For me, it was because Kubo went out of his way to initially make Ginjo seem a little suspicious when we first met him, and then took the time to have him earn not only Ichigo's trust, but the reader's trust too. Hell, a big part of him teaching Ichigo was pretending to be bad for a few minutes, only to literally be like, nah, I could never be a villain. Straight up diabolical trolling by Kubo, but also a great way to kind of lower your defenses. He introduced Ginjo with these kind of suspicious smirks, suspicious motivations, only to have him give reasonable explanations for all of it, really. He strangely knew about Isshin, but it turned out he was really just doing that to recruit Ichigo. He pretended to be bad, but it turned out that was just part of Ichigo's training. Kubo kept this character always kind of on the edge, but was sure to show us that Ginjo was really an ally and a friend when it came down to it, or so it seemed. It's just Kubo did a great job of reeling in his shadiness a little and masking it well by showing us his potential darkness, but then going, oh no, there's nothing to really be concerned about. You can trust him, trust me. This story went to great lengths to make the reader like Ginjo, or at least trust him. It was more reason than we've ever gotten to trust other treasonous characters in the past. Like, think about it. Aizen wasn't written to be someone that the readers knew very well at the time of his betrayal. He was intentionally designed as like an unassuming, reasonable nice guy surrounded by much more outlandish and unreasonable characters. He was just kind enough and visually distinct enough to be remembered and respected by the reader before his fake-out death. And following his death, when people were investigating his quote-unquote death, our trust of Aizen, or at least my trust of him, came from people like Momo that were talking so fondly about him and were so furious about his death. But we didn't know Aizen. We didn't spend all that much time with him. We still don't know him that well. He didn't feel like he had become part of the recurring cast of heroes like Ginjo has felt throughout this arc. And as far as his fellow traders even, Tozen was not the most likable personality and wasn't given much page time before his turn. And Gin was so obviously evil that it was expected that he was a turncoat, which perfectly hid his actual twist further down the line. My point is, this betrayal just felt personal, not just to Ichigo, but to me. We spent time with Ginjo. We got to know him and see how he helped our protagonist, how he cared about his friends, how he could be strong and silly and inspiring and was also apparently a drunk. He was part of our new cast of heroes. But yes, I really grew to like Ginjo, and yes, I even trusted him as an ally. But no, he was secretly evil the whole time. Not even Ginjo realized it for a while. Let's just take a few moments to look at the hints that led to this revelation. I always love once there's a big twist to look back and see the little steps that led to it. So the first real step was Uryu being attacked, where Kubo initially made it seem like it was Tsukishima. It seemed like Tsukishima's big villainous introduction. Uryu was chasing him, and we even saw Tsukishima get close to him before Uryu's bloody on the ground, so it was a natural thing to believe. Like, of course, the guy that just suddenly launched himself at Uryu attacked him. It just makes sense, right? Sure, we didn't see the attack itself literally happen, but it seemed like a pretty foregone conclusion that that mysterious guy attacked Uryu. But there have been hints throughout this arc that something was off about Uryu's attack, and I've talked about that in previous videos, that it's weird that he wasn't experiencing the same symptoms as, say, Orihime was after she was attacked by Tsukishima. Even in this, in the flashback, Ginjo's like, yeah, Uryu's the key. As long as Ichigo doesn't notice that what happened to him is different than what happened to his friends. It's like, I noticed Ginjo and I still fell for it. Anyway, there have been hints. I said myself from the time we first saw the blade that Ginjo's sword looked similar to a Zanpakuto. Just this massive sword, right? And sure enough, Uryu said the only thing he really saw was that it looked like his attacker had a Zanpakuto. Now that's not a dead giveaway because he could have been talking about Tsukishima's sword too, obviously, and that's what I thought at the time, but the real answer was right in front of me and was something I noticed from the get-go. I just hadn't put it together because I hadn't even considered that anyone but Tsukishima attacked him. Because of the way the scene happens, I just didn't even think about it could have been someone else. I just thought maybe Tsukishima intentionally didn't change him or something. It's also worth noting that Tsukishima, despite having every opportunity, didn't seem to try all that hard to kill Ginjo or any of Execution. He was almost singularly focused on Ichigo, and even when they were fighting him, when Ginjo was backing up Ichigo, Tsukishima doesn't seem that intent on killing Ginjo. He walks away where it felt like he probably could have fought that whole team, and with his abilities, he probably could have. It's just so crazy that this happened this way. It's like hard to fully process still, and it's been a couple days since I read it, but like the thing I'm really taking away from it is what this does to Ichigo. He was already at a breaking point, and now he's at like a shattering point. I don't know, like going through all of this, losing his Soul Reaper abilities, having to kind of start over as a normal person, and then discovering a new power within himself, only to learn it had all been the product of manipulation just so it could be stolen from him. It's just like the last straw, right? The scream Ichigo gives on the ground is utter despair. Ichigo's at rock bottom, and it was absolutely devastating and so heart-wrenching to see him just so broken. He's been through so much, tried so hard, had the best intentions, and it's hard to watch him at his lowest. Ichigo is almost defined by his resilience and his stubbornness and his refusal to give up against overwhelming odds throughout the whole series, and he's been completely destroyed. This is the lowest we've ever seen Ichigo. I don't care if he got killed by Ukiura. I don't care if we've seen him hurt before and mentally unwell before. This, as far as he knows, every single person he loves is living in an alternate reality, and he trusted the wrong people, and those people betrayed him, and they took the power that he got. He's done. He's just done. It really struck me even more in the anime version of this scene, but the rain that falls as Ichigo's there, just on the ground, sobbing and screaming. It's just how important rain is to Bleach. And to me, the importance thematically of rain in Bleach is showing Ichigo's despair, or his worst moments, or his tears kind of falling from the sky. I know that sounds corny, but it's true. It just seems to represent his sadness, his mom dying, memories in the rain where he's kind of going through that trauma again. There was obviously a lot of rain. There was, once Rukia got taken and it started raining, that was a big visual of Urahara standing over him with the umbrella. And this, it's just every time it rains, I feel like it's showing Ichigo at his lowest or at a moment of intense emotional change. Like maybe it's his sadness mixed with rain kind of washing things away for something new maybe. It's just a beautiful thing to me. When I think about Bleach a lot, I think about the rain. And I think here, I'm telling you, during the anime version of the scene, I started tearing up a little, even though I knew what was about to happen thanks to the manga, but seeing him so low, and it's like the whole world is against him, and there's no sunshine, there's no beautiful days, there's just rain and sadness and sorrow, despair. Yeah, it was tough. It was tough to watch that and him go through that, because Kubo really has driven home, like I said, how much he has gone through and how much he tried to persevere, and it just didn't matter. But even, his internal world, which I loved the imagery of that they used in the anime, where he was like sinking, chained up in his despair, his inner world, that being flooded often, has been symbolic of Ichigo being kind of in turmoil and off balance. And I assume that world was flooded by rain. So, rain is very tied with Ichigo's emotions. And I loved that despite how awful this moment is, how just sad it is, he doesn't give up. Like, even at his lowest, at this point, where it literally seems like he has nothing left at all. Not even people to fight for and to protect. He refuses to completely roll over and give up. He demands the return of his powers, standing up to Ginjo, even when Ichigo has no power and no leverage to use against him. He still is standing up to someone that could kill him in an instant now. And then Ichigo gets stabbed through the back. And I'm talking literally this time, not just Ginjo betraying him. He gets stabbed by a sword of energy, and I'm sitting there like... And just like when Ichigo looks back and sees his dad and Urahara, I also was like, damn. Tsukishima got them too. Because I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. If Kubo had them show up just to fully drive in the sword and go, yeah, literally everyone's against him. But no, something incredible happened instead. Rukia appears and is revealed to be the one that's holding the sword that was run through Ichigo. What a moment. I wasn't entirely shocked to see her because it was set up earlier that Isshin and Urahara were working on something with the Soul Reaper. So there was a good chance it was her, and sure enough it was. And it's so great to see her after so long without her. Like, amazing. And what a moment, what a comeback moment, and just completely flipped the script. But I love the haircut, and more importantly, her apparent promotion. Finally. I've been saying they need to bump her up in rank. Hell, they should have after they wrongfully tried to execute her. She should have got promoted then. I'm sorry. She needed some sort of recompense for almost getting executed. But I'm so proud of her and excited not only for her, but for a lot of things, because this may confirm that more things have changed in the Soul Society in these 17 months too. New captains maybe? Let's hope. I'm so pumped, so shocked, and there's just something so incredibly poetic about the way things are kind of repeating in new ways. From the beginning of this Lost Agent arc, how it started out in a very similar place as the series itself started. A kind of reset in some respects where Ichigo is kind of back to near normalcy and away from the Soul Reapers, and now as a threat came to harm his family and his loved ones, he is once again stabbed through the chest by Rukia Kuchiki, and once again is given Soul Reaper powers. Just beautiful and so hype. Like, just look at this new design. Just look at it. But I'm gonna leave most of my raving about this return for next video, because I'm sure Ichigo is gonna have plenty more to show now that he's finally returned to being an actual Soul Reaper, but we'll see. This was a wonderful, horrible, unpredictable ride the whole way through these chapters. This whole section of the arc has been utterly insane. With this crazy betrayal and how it was pulled off, Kubo brought us to the absolute bottom of a very dark pit, which only made this rescue and restoration even brighter. It was an extremely effective narrative strategy and is paying off wonderfully. I was depressed, Ichigo was depressed, and here's Rukia coming to help us and give us hope again. And oh my god, I feel so happy for Ichigo, and I am so ready for him to bring these wonderfully horrible bastards down. Oh, hype. But that's where we'll stop for now. It was amazing. God, what a ride. Yeah, that'll do it. As always, thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. If you want to support the channel a little bit extra, please become a member. I do intend on starting a Patreon soon, so maybe if you want to support me there when that starts, that would also be wonderful. Yeah. That'll do it. I feel emotionally exhausted, but also so hopeful now. And that's a nice feeling to have. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.